Did you finish Elden Ring? I mean, maybe you beat the last boss. Congrats, by the way, that guy was hard. You beat the game, but did you finish it? Ah, yes, I see the sudden fame has made Arkling lose his marbles. No, I promise I'm going somewhere with this. I think that what we think of as finishing a game is inconsistent at best and detrimental at worst. And the game that helped me realize that is Elden Ring. So when I was playing Elden Ring for the first time, I was playing alongside an old roommate of mine. We were both basically no-lifing the game, and about a week later we had mostly the same hour count. The difference was that my roommate had beaten the game, and I hadn't even made it to the capital yet. Usually when we think of finishing a game, we ascribe some authority to those who have done so. We would say that people who have beaten a game would be more well-versed in a game than those who had not, or otherwise had a fuller experience in some way. But here, I'd argue that my roommate knew no more about the game than I did. He may have beaten the game, but I had seen 3 entire zones that he didn't even know existed. The thing about Elden Ring is it's kind of a magical game. I have a history of skipping past side quests in games to see the main story, to my own detriment a lot of the time. I rarely ever do side quests, usually opting instead to attempt the main story under-leveled, a combination difficulty bump and ludonarrative, which is to say I get to brag about finishing the campaign in a self-imposed hard mode. But Elden Ring returned me to the days of doing so many side quests, I forgot what the main quest was in the first place. Seriously, I don't really remember the main story. Something about restoring the Elden Ring? But you don't need all the shards to do that, and I don't really get it. But I know the story of the 3 fingers. I know Radahn and Ranni. And of course, I know the story of the great Kenneth Haight! I wouldn't have been happy with finishing the game without completing Ranni's quest in particular. And you know what's absolutely magical? So many players felt the same way. There are more people who finished the Age of Stars ending, Ranni's ending, than any other, including the neutral ending. A massive number of players braved the 3 extra zones you need to get past to finish Ranni's questline, at least as many players as have seen an ending. What I'm trying to say is, Elden Ring has managed to make its world so enthralling to explore that these side quests are more important to players than beating the actual game. And all that's without quest markers or quest logs. And here you might start to understand why there will never be a sequel to my first video essay. Unless you count this, I guess. Elden Ring has rendered my prior concept of finishing games meaningless. Yeah, you saw the last cutscene, but was that enough for you? For many people, the answer is yes. Veni vidi vici. That is what it means to play video games. But I can't say that honestly anymore. There's so much more to games than finishing them. And I would assert that this goes both ways. Just as beating a game doesn't mean you finished it, finishing a game doesn't require beating it. I, like many of you, have a massive Steam backlog of unfinished games. Some I love but have barely played. Some I've played a lot of, but don't particularly like, and then there's Hollow Knight. I have 27 hours in Hollow Knight. I absolutely love the game, despite generally not being able to handle Metroidvanias. I get lost, it's not great. But despite how much I've played, I haven't beaten it. I'm right at the final area, I know this because I've seen speedruns, but I haven't actually walked in to beat the last guy. And part of me says, just knock it off the list, finish it up. But now I'm thinking, what do I actually gain from that? One last boss fight before saying I'm done? You might say, that last encounter might have something that really affects your feelings on the game. But there's areas and bosses I haven't beaten elsewhere as well. You could say the same thing about those. Do I have to go back and finish them too? Ultimately, I feel like my time with Hollow Knight is complete. I might come back and do another playthrough eventually, but for now, I'm finished. I've gotten everything I was looking for out of it, and more. And I'm not the only one who interacts with games like this. The frog who helped me edit this script has well over 100 hours in Breath of the Wild and absolutely no intention of touching the game anytime this century. The main quest sometimes just isn't the point. That might seem like quitting to some people. I know I'd have thought that 2 years ago. But that doesn't hold when you put it to scrutiny. Why is not finishing the last boss any more or less quitting than, say, not doing the DLC? Dropping a game because you're not having fun anymore is common sense. If it's not fun, why bother, right? Souls fans might argue at first, but the reason you weather the hardship of these games is because you find the experience of overcoming the challenge valuable. You find it fun. Considering this, it makes more sense to say you've finished a game not when you beat it, but when you've gotten everything out of it you're looking for. Now I know I've probably lost a few people here. Some folks might say something like, you can't judge a game unless you've beaten the whole thing. And that does, initially, seem like it tracks. If you want to have a critical conversation about a game, you need to have beaten it, know all its cards. But again, that ascribes an authority to people who beat games that might not necessarily be earned. I've beaten many games while ignoring most of their side quests. When I first played Persona 5, I rushed to see the main story, literally skipping days by sleeping to pass time, and I thought the pacing was kind of awful. But this way of interacting with the game is just not something it's made for. When I was replaying it after its 2nd edition Persona 5 Royal released, I spent more time invested in the stories of side quests, seeing considerably more of the game, and those pacing problems started to disappear. Not entirely, but the dreadful boredom I had experienced before didn't rear its head. Authority from completion seems to come secondary to authority via knowing the game's context, understanding the series an installment is from, understanding the genre a game belongs to, and the larger cultural context it lives in. So to say that you need to beat a game to start engaging with it critically doesn't hold water. In fact, many of the conversations we have about games don't factor in progress at all. The majority of discussions about Elden Ring I saw and participated in were about secrets, quest progression, cool items and interactions. These are all experiences that are progress agnostic. You can talk with someone who is half your level and they'll have found 3 different NPC quests you didn't even know existed. I know because it happened to me. And besides, I know for certain that when people leave a game can be one of the most connecting conversations of all. Just look at the comments on my Dark Souls video. Every other comment is someone talking about when they just couldn't handle the game anymore, or talking about times they put the game down because they were stuck, only to return and beat it once and for all. As much as beating a game is part of your interaction with a game, leaving is too. I even got to give someone advice on getting past the part they were stuck on. So it really feels like we focus too much on beating games. What matters is the experiences you have with them, how you interact with them, how they interact with you, what challenges you personally experienced, and how you handled them, or why you chose not to. I hope this essay can help recontextualize the experience you've had with both games you've beaten and games you haven't. And I think it would be better for games as a whole if we stopped obsessing over beating games, how hard it is to do, how long they are, and more about what we do and how we feel playing them. Or, I guess if nothing else, it's an excuse to say I finished every game in my Steam library, so really buying a new game is okay. Hey guys, post-video Arkling here. I was looking for an excuse to talk about Elden Ring, and this is the first idea that really jumped out at me and made me feel like, yes, I'm really excited to make this video. I have a number of other projects that I'm really excited for, especially some that have like a personal significance to myself. And I really hope you're willing to stick around and see those. And I hope this video sates some of your appetites for more Souls content. I've been Arkling. Thank you very much for watching.